Good evening again, everyone. It is the dawn of a new day, Saturday morning in the Persian Gulf, Saturday morning in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, a capital that was battered yesterday, their time, by American forces, the beginning of the shock and awe campaign. It is just now coming up on dawn there, 6 in the morning. These are the pictures from Baghdad. As many of you know, some of you may not, however, our correspondent, Nick Robertson, our correspondents actually, led by Nick Robertson, have been expelled and they are making their way out. We still have access to a number of locations and a number of correspondents, mostly from Arab language television networks that have been allowed to stay. There is some evidence tonight that the Iraqis, in terms of how information is going to come out of Iraq, are getting more than a little testy. How that might impact what we see as daylight comes, we don't know yet, but it's important to know, certainly for us, we want to know, American military planners want to know what sort of damage was done beginning at about 9 o'clock last night, Iraq time, middle of the day here in the United States on the East Coast, when this long-awaited shock and awe campaign began. This was a 7-minute attack, but imagine how long those 7 minutes must have felt. These bombs and missiles falling on the outskirts of Baghdad at selected military command and control targets. One of the things we would anticipate happening in the next 4 hours or so, if the Iraqis prove true to form, is we may well see some sort of tour of the damage. Get some sense what, if any, collateral damage, what, if any, civilian targets were erroneously hit. These are very precise, in most cases, very precise weapons, but they are still subject to error like any other thing that's mechanical. They don't always hit what they are intended to hit, and no one expects that there will be no civilian casualties in this. This went on for 7 minutes. There was a second strike that began 90 minutes or so later. And as the people of Baghdad wake up now on this Saturday morning and come out into the streets, these pictures now live in Baghdad, as you can see, very little activity on the streets there, but it's still very early in the morning, just a bit after 3 in the morning. Surely they must wonder what this day is going to bring, what it will bring in terms of the American military response. But they must also wonder who's running the country, how much control the government of Saddam Hussein has over the country. The message from the American side is that the government of Iraq is in disarray. Surely the Iraqis must wonder that as well. Is there a government of Iraq, and to what degree is it in control of any of the institutions of government? It's Saturday morning there. There has been a tremendous number of developments over the last 24 hours or so, and we'll spend a lot of our time tonight taking a look at those and trying to figure out where next this goes. When we left you the other morning, yesterday morning, we anticipated today might be the day the attacks took place. The pictures on the big screen to the right of a major Air Force base in Great Britain, B-52s, over the last hour or so have been landing. They've been making runs across Iraq. One of the things to keep in mind while we're able to show you the pictures of these terrible attacks, terrible if you're on the other end of them, attacks at Baghdad, there have been missions flown throughout the country, certainly in the north of the country, we know. These are pictures that we haven't been able to show you. We don't have cameras in those locations yet. We haven't seen what they have done, but these B-52s, these old workhorses, of the Air Force have been doing their duty, and they've been coming back now to this air base in Great Britain. There have already been some defections and surrenders by Iraqi forces, not especially surprising given what planners believed would happen, but they have started at the kind of units we were told to anticipate were not highly motivated to fight the fight. As you see, yet another one of those giant B-52s, and they go, General Wes Clark is with me, they go way back to, I think, before Vietnam, don't they? They have been a part of the American military arsenal for most of our lifetime, literally. As we sit here, they're obviously updated, as is the weaponry they carry, but that basic plane, that B-52, has been the heavy bomber for a long, long time. These planes coming back to England. Over at the Pentagon, Jamie McIntyre, our senior Pentagon correspondent. Jamie, there are a number of things I think that you can get us started on. There have been first of all, what is your sense of where the military campaign goes, and then go ahead and kind of transition into what we know about surrenders.
Well, Aaron, this was the day that the Pentagon delivered on its promise to dish out a punishing aerial assault on Baghdad, which they said was unprecedented in modern warfare. Now, the results aren't in yet. We know that there are a lot of government buildings in Baghdad in ruins, and as you mentioned, there have been some significant surrenders of Iraqi forces, in particular the 51st Division down in the south, an entire division apparently surrendering en masse, according to the Pentagon's report. But Pentagon officials here caution that despite the favorable battlefield reports, it's way too early to declare victory. The Pentagon calls it A-Day, A for the massive air assault that would drop more than 1,500 precision-guided bombs and missiles on hundreds of separate targets across Iraq. The Pentagon says it's a bombardment of historic proportions.
The weapons that are being used today have a degree of precision that no one ever dreamt of in a prior conflict.
The bombing, designed to shock and awe Iraq's military, centered on Baghdad, but also struck key targets in Mosul and Kirkuk in the north and Basra in the south.
We successfully accomplished our mission. We did everything that we set out to do. Everybody's back safe and sound.
All targets are designed to undermine the regime of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein and to convince his generals to turn on him or at least surrender. Such as, for instance, this presidential palace compound, which is located in downtown Baghdad. The concussions jolted Iraqi officials giving a military briefing. While some Iraqi regular troops are giving up, others are fighting. 2 U.S. Marines have been killed in action, and there are no signs yet Saddam Hussein's generals are defecting.
Apparently, what we have done thus far has not been sufficiently persuasive that they would have done that.
The U.S. has taken some ground in the south, including Qasr, a key southern port, along with 2 airfields in western Iraq. The southern oil fields have just about been secured, and the U.S. ground forces have moved more than 100 miles into Iraq from Kuwait. But the war is far from won.
Clearly, we're moving towards our objectives, but we must not get too comfortable. We're basically on our plan and moving towards Baghdad, but there are still many unknowns out there.
2 of those unknowns: what happens when the U.S. military comes face to face with the Republican Guard around Baghdad? Will they fold or fight? And are they armed with chemical weapons, and will they use them? Pentagon officials say that's their biggest concern at this time. And Aaron, so far in this aerial campaign, the so-called shock and awe campaign, no U.S. aircraft were lost.